Ichi, ni, san, shi. Tomo arigato, Mitsubishi tsunami. Gurugameshi Honda anta baka kawaii. Konnichiwa sensei senpai, I pray you'll notice me. Cause I'm a righteous guy who loves my Japanese enemies. Yokozuna Sakura Ninja Gaiden Nipponichi Shigeru Miyamoto Tojo Ohio Kamikaze Sumo Sushi San Kokuna Tenshi no Yoni. Cause we're two gaijin besties who love Japanese enemies.
Welcome to the third episode of the Pleb the Weeb, the last one of this pilot set of episodes. The show where we watch anime and talk about it, and you decide who is the plebe and who is the weeb. And today we're joined by our very special guest, Ben Saint of Patreon.com. So I guess you'll be in the voting too.
Sweet.
We'll see who's maximum plebe, maximum weeb. We just watched a short 5-episode ONA called Planetarian.
Good morning, children, and welcome to the Planetarian. We're going on a fascinating ride through the universe, so I want you to lean back in your chairs and get comfortable.
This is stupid.
And now I'm going to dim the lights and let the stars come out.
Whoopee.
Ben, you want to tell us about it?
Absolutely, Digi. You know, as a starman myself, I was very deeply moved. I was deeply touched by this series. You know, I used to work at space camp, and I gave lectures about stars and stuff, and I told those very same stories that what's her name, Ho Chi Minh gave in this series. And so to see spoilers later on when she shows her memories of the kids there, like talking about like how deeply they enjoyed like her presentation and stuff. It was very, oh man, it hit really close to home. But even beside that, even before all that, like right from the very beginning, just the whole situation. There's like a real quick setup, and right away you get the idea of like who this character is, this girl, and what she's doing there, and just it's so just drenched in pathos right from the get-go. And it just carries that all the way through. Yeah.
Bear in mind, we save spoilers for later.
Sorry.
Not that you spoiled anything major. So the show takes place in like a post-apocalyptic setting where it just rains all the time. Very appropriately, it was raining all fucking day for us here. The main character is a junker who goes around collecting spare parts, stumbles into a planetarium where there's this robot girl. Jesse, you want to tell us about the robot girl?
Well,
take a drink, everyone.
she's great.
She's the best.
She's really intimately into her planetarium. And she teaches the guy all this stuff. At first, he's annoyed with her, but then he starts coming around, realizing that she's cool as fuck. And he falls in love with the planets.
He's just there on a job, right? Like he's just there to like collect whatever it is he collects, but whoa.
I do have something to say, and it might get a little bit sloppy because I've been thinking, and I've been drinking. I think we can all agree that this show is a fantastic masterpiece, and it really came out of nowhere because I had never heard of it. I hadn't heard anyone talking about it, so it really surprised me. But that got me thinking. You know what I had heard a lot about? What people kept talking about? What they specifically kept requesting you to review? ReZero. You know, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am a little sickened at how you people demand mediocrity, because we just reviewed ReZero, and I was trying to be fair to it. I gave it a 5, and then I took it down to a 3, but I realized I was really too soft on it. I wasn't hard enough. That show deserves a fucking 0, and I'll tell you why, because this is what anime is capable of. This is a short, 5 episodes? A masterpiece, an emotional, no wasted minutes, whereas a show like ReZero is just a 26 episode, a slow slog through the swamps of poop. It's a poop show for poopy, stupid babies. And you people, you need it. You love it so much. You just needed to hear an opinion on it. You demand mediocrity. It's on the tip of your tongues. It's on the front of your mind. You need just a slow morphine drip of the most basic shit imaginable. The most basic, boring,
And now
nothing,
breathe deep
worthless
as the
crap.
stars
And
slowly
meanwhile,
start
a
to
true
move
masterpiece
in
like
little
this, I didn't do
circles.
anything about it. It just gets
I
annoying
know
to
you think
ignore,
planetariums
push
are
away
boring,
stuff. And that's
but
what
I'm
we
gonna
do.
try to change the way you think about them.
And you people should feel ashamed of yourselves because you're the ones who sustain this sick paradigm where the poop floats to the top and the gold sinks to the bottom. I'm ashamed of myself. Everyone who didn't know about this show is an idiot poop, and I'm more
You love the
because I didn't know about it.
planetarium.
But
To be
now I know
without
about
the
it. And now I
planetarium
spread the
causes you
gospel. There's
horrible
one
pain.
thing that I hope
All
we
you
can
want to do is
get
help the
everyone watching
planetarium
the show
thrive.
and get more people talking about it than talking about Stupid ReZero, which is a poopy show for dumb idiot babies, and I hate them all. And that's all I got to say about that.
This show definitely put ReZero to shame.
Hey, look at this guy.
Whoa.
He's on
All
point.
right, cameraman.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Planetarian is based on a visual novel from 2004. I had heard a lot about the visual novel back in the day.
I'd never heard of it.
It's made by Key, the same people who made Air, Cannon, Clannad, Little Busters, Angel Beats. All very famous shows. You're both looking at me like, no, I don't know what any of
What
that
the
means.
fuck is an anime?
But Planetarian was a pretty like legendary visual novel for its feels, but like it took a long time to get adapted to anime, and it was interesting that they did it in a formula where each episode was however long it needed to be. Like the first episode's like 14 minutes, the second episode's like 13, then 21, then 17, then 24. Love that. That's something I've been asking for, like I wanted to see in anime very badly, and I talked about this in my best things happening in anime this decade video, that I want more anime that take advantage of the internet and the fact that you don't have to release everything in exactly 22-minute blocks on TV to, you know, experiment with how long a story can be.
If ReZero had been 5 episodes long, it would have been a really good show, I think.
yeah,
it
if
could
they
have been
cut
a
out
great
all
story.
the fucking bullshit in that story, it could have
Yeah.
been solid.
I mean, like, just right off the bat, I mean, they don't bullshit you with, like, explaining the backstory or you just get it. Like, you get in there, and the guy is walking around in this dystopian, you know, post-apocalypse, and you just get it. You don't need... There's, like, one establishing shot of him running away from some security drones that are chasing after him. Just fucking... yeah.
Everything was so interesting. Like, I love when a guy in a show... I love the concept of, like, a robot just being taken as a matter of fact. Like, the show didn't spend too much time dwelling on this same old issue that's, you know, dwelled on in every science fiction show of like, oh, is this a real person? Does it have feelings? The guy just sort of is like, of course it's a real person. She's clearly got feelings. She's my robot friend, and now we're friends, and then...
Well, it's like he approaches it the way I think a normal person
he's
would
definitely
approach
skeptical at
it.
first,
Yeah, he's
but
like
not overly skeptical.
I mean, he knows the whole time that it's just a robot, but he nevertheless develops genuine feelings for it. Like, you know, it displays all these emotions, and it seems to have, you know, a deep inner life that he comes to care about over the course of a couple episodes, and you just get it.
And I think it says something without outright saying it that's pretty clever about if we had actual androids and robots and AI, how we would treat them, because there is, like, at first sort of a condescending tone that he gives her, and even when she goes into her own memories of her creators, even her creators sort of infantilize her and coddle her the way one would a child. And they're not bad people for doing it, but they're treating her like they would a real person, which is to, you know, not want to hurt her feelings and tell her how scary the world is.
Yeah, her creators are, I mean, like, can I get into spoilers? Are we
Spoiler
too
discussion
early?
now.
All right,
I mean,
yeah.
I think everyone has gotten the point that we like and recommend this show, so you should. And it's short as fuck. We watched it in less than 2 hours, so go watch it if you want. If you don't want to be spoiled, 'cause we're
Please
watching
watch
into
it. It's really worth your time.
It's a fucking 11 out of 10, and ReZero was a negative 20 out of 10.
Watching this show really reminded me of like what a show could be.
Yeah.
I suddenly was like, oh, anime doesn't have to just be an anime.
Exactly. It just makes me sort of seethe to think about what I think of when I think of anime. And
Like-
it's not because good shows don't.
Because ReZero has...
Anime can aspire to more, and I think this show did, and it reached. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it did more in its 5 episodes than ReZero ever did, and fuck ReZero. I mean,
fuck it.
Yeah,
This is the ReZero review part 2. We found a better show.
we totally
Stick
did.
that up your ass and smoke it.
Like when she asks, okay, he tells her to pray because she asks for something that is unlikely, and she says, "What God should I pray to?" And he's like, "Whatever God you choose." And she asks him, I don't know. They talk about God, and he says, "Why don't you pray to the God of robots?" And she says, "I don't think there is a God of robots, but I did ask my creators." And then we see her asking, like, creators, what is, is there a heaven for robots? And they tell her, like, and one of them jumps up, like, yes, there is a heaven for robots.
Oh, that was so.
And then
that was when the show got me. Like, up until that point,
it had me before that.
We had this cute robot girl, and like, okay, I found her a little annoying at first because she just never shuts up. Like, the whole first episode, she just won't shut up.
I was instantly enamored.
The
She's
main
a
character guy.
creature.
The main character guy is annoyed with her, and like most of their interaction in the first episode is her being like, "Please." We watched this dubbed, by the way, which was a good dub.
Yeah.
I would not disparage anyone for watching it.
All the dubs are perfect, but
Well,
no one believes me.
I think what made this dub good is that it only had 2 characters who were important, and they both had good performances. When they show all her rolling all the clips at the end of all the all the people who talked to her, I did think some of their voices were a little, like if we had too many characters like that
babies.
around,
They don't need to talk good. They're
Right.
babies.
That's why I was willing to accept it. But yeah, it's a fine dub. Which is saying something coming from me. I'm a staunchly anti-dub man.
It was just a feels party,
Yeah.
I was consistently on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
For most
well,
but
that's where it got me.
Luckily, there was enough swinging dong in the room that the testosterone levels were floating in the atmosphere.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, we were
Preventing
here.
me. I didn't quite break, but I was close a couple times. But then I just looked at one of your
Ben
dongs
was
and I
having
was filled with straight rage. The rage of 1,000 straight men, which is what I am.
Thank you.
Which prevented me from being a little bitch.
Were you gonna say that I was about to break?
Yeah, you were close.
When?
A lot.
A couple times I thought I was gonna come close. The time I really got close was right at the end, and it was, it was right at the end, right when, like, I knew that it was building to this, and this was the moment that was supposed to make me cry, and
Right.
I knew it, but it still worked.
Yeah.
I was still almost got there. My lip was.
I mean, there was
quivering a little bit.
definitely like, I had the sense from the kind of story this is, the girl's gonna die.
Yeah.
I've seen a few other shows that are kind of like this, not as good as this one, like Iria no Sora, UFO no Natsu, which are like short shows that are just about like guy meets girl has some kind of interesting quirk and is super lovable, and she dies horribly, and it's really sad. Like, I've seen a bunch of shows following that
Story of
formula.
my life.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But so I kind of expected her to die, and then as soon as Devu like looked up that it was a Key visual novel, I was like, oh, it's Key that she's gonna die. Like, Key are known for the fact that all their shows end with all the fucking characters dying horribly. But spoilers for every Key show. Not that you should watch any of the others. This is probably their best one. But yeah, like the at first I was like, I don't know about this robot girl, and then as soon as we saw that like memory of them teaching her about robot heaven and just like the sincerity with which she believes it, like, because she's incredibly naive and very sincere, but in a way that's like, it's interesting which stuff she's naive about, because she's like a robot programmed in certain ways where like, it's not that she's just outright doesn't get anything, but there's certain stuff that she's just not programmed to understand, and other stuff that she like is starting to get, but doesn't really see it as negatively as she could.
Or like inhuman. She's just kind of naive.
I don't know if this was like a deliberate thing that the anime was going for, but I was never convinced. Even from the very beginning, she never came off to me as an AI. Like, right from the very beginning, she felt
was
more like a
very
person.
emotional for a robot.
Yeah, I mean, she says things that are like, my programming says this, and
right.
My creator says that, and I have protocols and da da da. But she always felt like a real person, even though she, I mean, the main character doesn't regard her as one at first, but I think pretty quickly he comes to see her with the same respect he would give to a real person.
Well, it's that he just got emotionally attached. He didn't care at all at first, and then as soon as he I think probably with the Robot Heaven story, there's a moment where you can clearly tell he's like, "Huh, well, I'm in now." I'm in. And then episode 3 is what really sells the whole thing, which is just this. And another thing that's special about this show is that it's so small.
It's so small.
It's so small. Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wish it were smaller. I think it could have been even smaller. Yeah, I think the last 2 episodes.
It's so small you can't even see it.
A
libertarian government.
It's an anime for ants.
The first 3 episodes are all about the main character. He comes in and he meets this robot girl and discovers what she's been doing with her life ever since civilization ended. She's just been kind of living out her. It's kind of like WALL-E. She's just sort of living out her programming.
A lolly wally.
A lolly wally. Well, she's a little too old for that.
Shut up! It's a good joke.
but she.
I'm a funny man.
And then and then in episode 3, there's the big emotional payoff where she finally, after he's helped her with all this stuff, and she repaired the machine, and she finally gets to do what she's wanted to do the whole time, which is just to give him this show and show him the stars and tell him the story about all the stars. That's it's what she's programmed to do, and and I think that is the best part of the show. And then episode 4 and 5 kind of are cashing in on all the buildup that the first 3 have done, and building towards her eventual death, which is. It's very sad, and I was on the verge of tears when it happened. Yeah. I still think that the first 3 were the strongest part of the show.
This show would not have worked at all if that scene didn't work as well as it does. You wouldn't give a fuck about episodes 4 and 5 if that scene in episode 3 didn't get you.
I mean, okay, the whole conceit of the show is that she is a very pedestrian robot, right? She is designed to do a very pedestrian function, which is to just deliver a speech and just entertain customers and talking about the stars.
What really almost got me was her going through the motions and standing by the entrance and going through her "Welcome to the Planetarium" spiel. After we know that she's a sad girl sometimes.
Yeah, and then he'll come out and he'll see her greeting customers when there's nobody there. Yeah. But and then even after he fixes the machine, so she gives the first part of her speech for a while, but then it breaks at the end, and he's like, just keep going. I don't care about seeing the stars. Just tell me the. I already know about the stars. I don't care about that. Just continue your story. I want to hear what you say.
That's where it connected with me is when she's doing the thing, she's presenting the thing, and it's already interesting, right? Because it's the planetarium, it's beautiful. She's giving the story, and then there's the moment when he's looking up and he's enraptured in the story, and then he looks down at her and he sees her gesturing all dramatically, and you didn't know that was happening, and you look at her and you realize that in order to communicate so vividly, she's full on acting out there.
For the first part, you just hear the narration with the star show, what a normal customer would be seeing. They'd be looking up at the stars and listening to the narration, but then at the end, you look down and you see the robot actually. And
it was the way that the guy
it out.
That he clearly was not even though the story was captivating him, it's the moment he realizes. It's not the story. It's not the story. It's her. It's how she's delivering the story. It's her passion, and that's when he's
it is.
And he explains it in such a poignant way. And I don't remember the exact quote, but he says something that all these gods and the heavens are all under her control, and she's manipulating all of it, and it's all her world.
That's what I'm saying. As I said, I know all these stories before. I worked at a similar place and gave the same kinds of things. I know all this shit, but just like the main character, it's not the story, the content of the stories themselves. It's that I cared about her, and I wanted to. It was her passion that got me invested. And even just listening to this very pedestrian show that she's designed to give, just 10 times a day probably. Just her passion for it and knowing this character got me so invested, and I was on the edge of my fucking seat throughout this whole thing she gave.
I was really shocked that I cared. That scene goes on for a long time.
It was half the episode or more.
Yeah,
and it was great.
And again, it was exactly as long as it needed to be, because if the episode had been 1 minute longer, it would have dragged. But it's a 21-minute episode. That's how long it needed to tell that part of the story. And, this is what shows should be doing. Use the power of, time to stop time.
It never felt like it was wasting my time.
No.
Unlike a certain other show that I could
Right.
A certain other show called Barney and Friends.
And there's
That's a
Barney and
piece of
Friends.
shit.
There's a lot of just cool
really
details.
went downhill after season
Fucking-
57.
That fucking purple dinosaur, Spike the Dragon, on that fucking Barney show.
Why didn't Barney grow up with its audience? Why didn't it grow with me? Why couldn't I still be enjoying it? What the
Don't
fuck?
laugh at me.
What the fuck, writers?
Get out!
They betrayed me.
So there's a lot of cool details that I liked a lot when she's like explaining just like some of the things that she says that give you such an insight into how the world and robots work in this world,
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you
No, I'm paying attention.
There's lots of just interesting little details. I love that the tank he fights at the end is like badass.
Yeah.
Like when it fucking flips its gun open and it's like this cool
my
contraption
God.
that like locks in and shoots this huge fucking railgun at him.
How shitty would it have been if, like, before he went to fight the tank, he had, like, explained what the tank's capabilities were, and we're like,
Yeah, that would be lame.
if attacked, it will
don't like
retaliate
that.
with, a hyper.
Don't attack while its tail's up. It'll counterattack with its laser beam.
No, it doesn't. The show doesn't fucking waste your time with a bunch of crap. It just gets on with it.
I love that
it's great.
the main character is surly. He's got
Surly.
cigarettes and
He's grown
drinks
up.
whiskey.
He's not a teenager.
No.
Yeah.
Fuck teenagers.
I was
Fuck
kind of
teenagers.
glad.
Fuck 'em, I don't
viewers.
like them. If you're one of them, just fuck.
I was kind of immediately glad we were watching it dubbed because of the fact that he's giving a narration, and I know, like, I hate the Japanese moody narration voice. I hate when the main character's like, "Korekara sore de ima hoshida." I hate that, like, breathy, dramatic narration. I don't know if it has that in the Japanese version because we didn't watch it, but, like, I could totally imagine it being that way, and I was like, I'm kind of glad we watched this dub because he has kind of a surly voice, and he doesn't sound like a generic anime guy, which I would have made the show much worse for me.
Yeah.
If he had just been some dude. Like, him being kind of likable is very important because there's only two characters,
I'm so on board with the protagonist. Like, he comes in, there's a robot, he doesn't care, but, like, he stays with this robot, not because of her. He stays there because, like, she offers him beverages and, like, she's got all these amenities, right?
Yeah.
Like, it makes perfect sense to stay there. It's got all this stuff. Like, it's a fully working facility. It's got electricity and water, and he's, like, he sleeps there for, like, 2 days. And the reason is because, he lives in this world where there's nothing. And so, and over the course of staying there, he gets to know this girl, and then eventually the power does run out, and those go away. But by that time, he's invested in this girl, and he kind of inwardly resolves, like, okay, I'm going to get this girl to go with me, and I'm going to try, and I don't know if I can overcome her programming, but I'm going to try my best to convince her to come with me.
Yeah. There's definitely a desperation behind it at the end, where he's like, I want her, I want her to be waifu.
It's hard. It's he pities her, and like it's hard not to pity her.
Yeah.
I mean,
We all pitied her.
The show does a really good job. It never quite crossed the line to feeling like it was being condescending or overselling it.
A girl with a metal butt.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you said earlier.
Cheers to that.
Hey.
Like you said earlier, it's very obvious what the show's doing. And I would expect that to bother me, but it did it so well that I don't care. Like, if you can pull my heartstrings, then you fucking succeeded.
I mean, if I have one complaint, it is that the last episode does go maybe a little bit overboard, and it does kind of go a little bit into the like cheesy, like I can tell you're trying really hard to pull my heart. It did it. It did successfully pull my heartstrings, but I could also tell that my heartstrings were being deliberately pulled.
I do have one complaint. It's that when you meet the girl and you fall in love with her, as I did, as every real American should and would do, I meet the girl, the robot girl, and
Digi, pass me that Kraken.
And I says to her, I say, hey, the girl is great, and I loved her immediately, but her design was a little bit too Japanese anime for me, you know?
But it's
I would
justified in the narrative.
Yeah, a little bit. It is
Because
justified a little
they
bit in the narrative.
They explain that she looks that the newer models have more mature and detailed faces, and that she's like a older, more plasticky,
that was hilarious and
unrealistic
cool,
model.
and I do appreciate it.
That's the only way they could have justified that.
Because the guy has
that
like
would have
small-
bothered me too. Where
Yeah.
did you put the lid?
I
To
Well, I
right
just
here.
think, you know, I instantly I like this character. I want to buy statues of her and
That's a
posters
lot.
of her. But she just looks like everyone looks at it because that's just an anime girl. I'm like, yeah, that's just an anime girl. But in my heart, I know that that's not
But, like,
just an anime girl. That's a robot anime.
but,
girl.
like,
She's
the
a real
protag-
human being
the
and a
pro-
real hero,
the
and I
pro-
love her. I
The,
love her a lot,
the
man.
protagonist may very well have looked at her and thought, anime girl.
Yeah,
Because
well, I love that
Yeah.
his first reaction when he sees her.
I'm so in the character's shoes in this story.
He walks into the room and the first thing he does is like point a gun at her, and it's like this surly masculine guy pointing a gun at this like adorable little moe girl, and then there's a moment where he keeps almost snapping on her, you know, and I thought that was really funny that he's like so clearly disgruntled and disgusted that he has to deal with this moe girl, you know. So I thought that was funny.
I mean, okay, that is kind of funny. They do sort of try to justify it with a couple of flashbacks where, like, the guy's mentor tells him, like, you know, if you see a robot, don't believe it, even if it's nice to you.
I want to know how he knew. I want to know what that story was. Did he just go in and see her and be like,
He was
fuck
raped
off?
by a robot butler.
He I mean, he was
child.
older. He probably came from, like, the older world where there were
Right.
these AIs sort of, like, running
Well,
around
I
as
had-
part of normal society.
I had the impression that he had talked to her specifically. Like, he'd been to that town and talked to her.
I think it's probably just that she was sort of a common thing in
'cause-
society before the world ended, and so he was familiar with the sort of thing that she is.
He said the worst part about raiding that town was having that robot follow me around all day.
Did he say specifically that robot?
Like, he said that town, like the worst part of that town was having a robot follow me around all day. So I think he went to that specific town. Maybe like a much later, like much earlier in the timeline before she, you know, had been abandoned for years and years.
Give me some Kraken, buddy.
If it was
Break me off a piece of that kick crack bar.
If it was the very same robot, I would find that pretty cheesy and kind of dumb. So
I'm not entirely sure.
I hope that it wasn't like there's just this one robot who is
Nobody informed Ben.
who's particularly nice and kind. I don't want that to be the case. I wanted to have
No!
that there was
I
just
don't like it! I don't want it! I'm a baby! Take it away!
Well, you know what they say. Real niggas stay babies for life.
I have heard the saying.
I'm just an anime. I'm not a man ready to handle the challenges of the world.
This is pretty gross, honestly.
Alright, so do you guys have any parting thoughts about this show before we give our scores? Jesse?
Planetarian gets a 10 out of 10 because it's a great show. It's good. And I fucking love it.
Ben?
The characterization and the build up and the establishing first 3 episodes are the best part. The final 2, they're not bad, but they're a little predictable. You know, you can tell what's gonna happen, and you know, as I said, you can tell it's pulling your heartstrings. I found it was a little cheesy, but it was still effective. I would give it a strong 8 to a light 9.
I had a good time with it. There wasn't so much going on in it, really. I mean, there's a core emotional story that was done well and is emotional. I don't know if I could give it more than a strong 7 to a light 8.
Whoa! What the fuck?
Look at these.
What the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about? I thought we were all on
I
board with
thought
this.
That's a really good score!
It's not that
not a
good.
really
It's not
good
good
score.
enough,
That's
dude.
all-
Well, this wasn't
that's a lot of things.
Evangelion, was it?
It basically
It
was.
kind of
as far as I'm concerned.
It was, you know,
As far as I'm concerned, for what it was, within its 5 episodes, this show did more in 5 episodes than most animes do in a fucking lifetime, and I can't fucking believe everything.
How to get burned! How to get burned! How to get burned!
Video games. I hate anime books.
Holy shit. Stop! Stop! We went overboard. We went way overboard.
Ding ding dong, ding ding dong.
God. What have I done?
Planetarium. Take a seat. Planetarian. Just enjoy the show.
Anime is a Japanese colloquialism which comes from shortening the word animation.
For the most part in Japanese, anime is synonymous with animation of any kind.
Anime is a Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Anime is a Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Anime is a Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism. Japanese colloquialism.
Let me see what spring is like in Pixar's cars. Bam!
Killed me.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.